And hello, and we have and the first guest, our first guest. Yes. And where is my partner? She is not here. So I know you guys, but really quick, introduce you guys self and like your podcast.
Sure. So we are Kevin and Celine, and we are relationship and intimacy coaches. And we have a awesome podcast called the Love Lab Podcast. And we help men and couples have better intimacy and deeper connection and keep things healthy and sexy.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you guys are a ton of fun.
We're just getting warmed up.
So today, sex, feast, and famine. So in a long-term relationship, and you're going to celebrate your 4-year anniversary, is it of being married?
No.
Or it's just in your whole relationship?
Whole relationship.
Awesome. So there's so my inquiry about today was in a long-term relationship, there's times that you have lots of sex, less sex, and there's kind of peaks and valleys. And so I wanted you to speak about that and kind of how to contextualize that, how to create that in an amazing way in your relationship.
Yeah, the first thing I would tell people is that that's totally normal. Right. So some people, they're in a long-term relationship and they're seeing that up and down happen and they're thinking, what's wrong? They're going, oh my God, something's wrong. He doesn't this or she doesn't that. And the first thing that I would want to tell people is that it's normal. It's totally normal. Even us, and we do this for a living every day and we coach people, we notice that there are times when our relationship does that. We have more sex, we have less sex. So totally normal. Don't think there's anything wrong. The second thing I would say though is it doesn't have to stay that way. And so for us, what we've noticed is we just have to have total, like brutal honesty and telling each other when we realize it's not happening. Right. So, and there have been a few times along the way where, one of us has said, hey, you know what? We only had sex once in the last 10 days. And, I'm feeling like I'm not as connected to you. And I want us to share more intimacy. And the other person has to be willing to hear that and not go into defense mode, but this and the kids and the thing and the whatever, and you just have to be able to talk about it so that you can then do something about it. So those would be the first two pieces of advice I would give.
That's good. What I would want to add is even though you might be in that famine state, it's always the hardest is to go back on track. And most people wait until they're in the mood to get back on track. And that's the worst thing that you can do. So like Kevin said, it's acknowledging that you fell off the wagon, saying you want to get back on track and really put it on your schedule. And that's
you fell off the sex wagon.
Absolutely. Like I want to go back on the sex train and have a fun time again because this is not happening. So the thing is you got to be willing to make it a priority again. And because really what happens is you let life and everything else become a priority. So it's just normal things and it's a constant like a path of finding that balance, right? And so once you're like, okay, we fell off the wagon, we want back in, and let's make it a commitment to each other, a priority. So let's schedule it tomorrow. Whether or not we feel like having sex, whether or not we feel like connecting, we're going to get naked and touch each other. It doesn't mean that you have to have penetration sex, but we're going to make connection and touch and nakedness the priority. And then we see where it goes. If you have a 2 hours window and you get naked and you start snuggling and touching and just like appreciating each other's bodies and rubbing on each other, like, where do you think this would lead, right?
Well, that's where it usually leads for us.
So in a practical yes. So like so if there's a partner that's more like I don't feel like it and you're proposing, so it is really a commitment, right? It's a commitment to have that intimacy. And so once as far as techniques are, I mean, obviously just getting together and starting to like touch and be with each other in that way is one way. Is there any techniques that you would suggest inside of that, like
Oh, absolutely. So there's a big thing that we teach all the time that we call the constant state of arousal. And so what we mean by that is, as Celine just said a moment ago, what a lot of people do is they don't do anything about it until they feel like they're in the mood. But the problem is that sometimes the mood doesn't ever happen, especially when you have a really stressful, busy life. And so one of the things that we've always done in our relationship and we've helped other people with is creating what we call the constant state of arousal. So what does that mean? Well, what that means is doing little things every single day to kind of cultivate that state of arousal, so that you don't have to go from 0, like no arousal at all, to 100 during your date night, right? You would go maybe from like 60 to 100. So what do we mean by that? Well, it could be simple things like knowing your partner's love language. Okay, so your partner loves gifts. So that might mean getting her flowers, on a regular basis. It might mean just picking up a little something when you happen to be out at the store. Or maybe they love touch and it means, giving them a shoulder massage, during the week. Little things like that. Now, with us, those things are on the list, but also, little things like, she loves when I physically grab her and touch her. So like if I walk by her in the kitchen, I'll squeeze her butt, right? And she likes that. Now, some women might not like that, so just know what your partner likes. But all those little things that we do on a regular basis every single day keeps that attraction, that arousal going throughout the whole week, so that when we get to this scheduled date night, which we do have, we're already halfway there.
Yeah. Another technique is once you're in it, that scheduled date night, and you're like, how the heck do I start it? Because I'm exhausted and I'm not in the mood, is to keep things in 10 minutes windows where you're like, okay, I'm the giver, you're the receiver for 10 minutes. You can ask for anything. And so you just take turns in giving, receiving, and you know that you're going to get something, and you know that they're going to ask for exactly what they want. So you're going to score in giving your partner exactly what they want. And it becomes a fun game because it forces you to start to get in touch with yourself and to verbalize what you want, ask for what you want. And it doesn't have to be crazy. It can literally start with rub my feet because I was on my feet all day. And then from there on, you can start to feel, ooh, it actually would feel really good. And if you start moving up, and I know we're on Facebook, so I'm not going to be too specific because I want this video to stay up for everyone to hear, but you get the picture, right?
You start moving on up.
And giving yourself permission to just want what you want, because sometimes we're like, oh, something is wrong with me, especially as women, because I'm not feeling sexual. I should be more open sexually, or I should want this, but I'm exhausted. And it's like, it's okay if all you want is to be held. It's okay if all you want is to be told you're beautiful, because that's what you need. Or maybe what you want is your partner to give you a lap dance or a strip tease. And it's like you're receiving that. So there's a giver and a receiver. There's a 10 minutes time frame. You take turn and you can do it 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, however many times you need it. And you'll see the connection and the intimacy that's being sparked again. And once that is sparked, you can go from there. And if that's all you do in your 2 hours of reconnection, you'll still feel fulfilled. There will still be like a great connection that has been created.
I really like that. I've gotten back into the gym, and it's really a commitment, right? It's like you go to the gym, you work out, you're going to work out hard, you got a program that you're going to do. And there's days that I don't really feel like it, but I'm going to do it anyways, right? It's like, because I want to feel great, I want to look great, and I have a commitment to that. And those are very practical steps to, okay, we have this commitment to like loving each other, and sex is part of that. And when there's like that, when it's not happening, that's like very practical, the ability to like give and receive. And I would say even that is not what most people have even understood, that they could have like a giving and a receiving. There's like always the person that gives, there's always the person that receives, and they're getting sort of bored in that dynamic. So that really livens it. I imagine could really liven up, 95% of people's love lives.
Yeah, and I can tell you our 10 minutes of everything usually goes over 10 minutes.
Are you
Rarely
saying you
does
get
it say-
carried away?
Exactly. So you can make it longer. You could make it 15 minutes of anything, whatever. Experiment with whatever time works well for you.
These are guidelines and games to start to bring the fun back. I want to bring another concept here, is that most people are focused on what can I get, like how much can I get off, like how many orgasm, how much can I like get in terms of pleasure. And it's very destination focused, the way that they approach their lovemaking. And this is not sustainable, especially in long-term relationship. If you start to shift the paradigm and how you view sex and how you do sex, and start to make it about the journey, and that it doesn't matter who gets off how many times or anything like that, is how much love can we generate, aka making love. And that there is no destination to reach, there's no expectation of orgasms, ejaculation, or anything like that, but it's just a connection of hearts and genitals, and that the genitals are being used to fire up the heart and the love, and that's what you generate. I bet it's more exciting.
So for people that have had a lot of sort of ego or self-worth, they're like kind of define themselves by how well their partner gets off, or if they get off, or what's the hack around that? Like, how can people move from that idea to this, like, let's be present with each other, let's create the love? How do you move somebody from there to there?
Okay, well, there's a couple ways to do that, and I think maybe the one that might be most compelling, so I'll start with that one, and then we can share some others. But so, okay, guys always are very goal oriented, right? So they are like, yeah, how many orgasms can I give her, kind of thing. But most guys, they can't last long enough in the bedroom to ever get her to that place anyway, so it's not that much of an issue, right? In other words, it's not like he's just going to be like spending all his time, yeah, look what I can do. Generally, what happens is it's the other way around. It's the woman over giving to the man, and her having this sort of subconscious self-pride in how quickly she can get him off, or how much he enjoys whatever. Here's what I think is the most compelling reason not to do that, which is if she doesn't do that, she will actually get more pleasure in return. Because if she pushes him too far too fast, and oh, great, now he just ejaculated and it's all over. Okay, she maybe reached a certain level of ecstasy or enjoyment or pleasure or orgasm or whatever it is. But if she doesn't do that, if she instead treats it like a journey and not like a mission, and enjoys the whole ride, you can keep those energy levels flowing, and they'll gradually inch up higher and higher and higher, and she will reach states of pleasure that she didn't even think was possible. So if there's any women out there thinking that, how quick you can get him off is somehow tied to your self-worth, just realize you're shortchanging yourself.
Yeah. So you got to get out of the missionary thing.
Exactly. So I often start with that because I think that one is most compelling, because we can talk about, the deeper love and the deeper connection, and people sometimes kind of roll their eyes like, whatever. But sometimes when you give them a real physical goal-based thing, which is funny because we're telling them not to be physical and goal-based, but sometimes when you give them that, they go, oh, I get that. I get that. I understand why I shouldn't do that.
At certain points, I've had the parameters of it was like a 3-to-1 ratio, which is more goal based, but that like I wasn't gonna go until there's like at least a couple of times over here, to make sure that this, because after this after I go, then there's not, as far as that, like you're saying, there's not as much drive and so to pull out that experience into a much, much longer experience.
Yeah, and from the guy's point of view too. So it's not only if you last longer, are you going to take her to higher levels of ecstasy? You are going to experience higher levels of ecstasy too. So from a man's point of view, if you can delay your ejaculation, you can ride her waves. It's like plugging into an electrical socket. The higher she goes, the brighter you get. And when all is said and done at the end, you could be left like vibrating for hours in a euphoric state without having taken any drugs whatsoever. But you're not going to get there if you can't learn to do that.
Right. If you're on the 7-minute special ride.
Exactly. Exactly. Which isn't so special, by the way.
This is just the regular. Yeah. And you also offer some of these courses. You have some different courses around these as well. So I can also link those into, so people, they want expanded experiences and they haven't yet experienced it, or if they've experienced expanded experience and want to expand the expanded experiences, then you guys are the guys and ladies.
Absolutely. Power and Mastery is our courses, powerandmastery.com. You can find all of them, and these are for men. And then we do work with couples, so obviously on our main site, CelineRemy.com, that's where they can find that, but you'll have all the links.
Yeah, and in Power and Mastery, we're working with 3 different things. We've got helping men with ED, we've got helping men last longer, and then we've got sexual mastery. And as long as your physical body's working fine, what you probably need to learn is how to make the 7-minute special into at least a 30-minute special. Your regular should be at least 30 minutes.
A quickie for us is 20 minutes.
That's like an ultra quickie. Like, oh my God, we got an appointment. This is all we got time for, and
so in the helping men with ED, what's the kind of the premise? Obviously people have the issue, but what's your approach to it?
We have a holistic approach, and so we look at everything. It's not like here, take a pill and it's going to fix it. Well, you can take a pill and it might make your plumbing work, but it's sometimes, not always, which is often what happens, and it has side effects. So we look at all the different aspects that will affect circulation in the body and confidence. So we look at the physical, at the mental, at the emotional, and then we look at what you need to do, changes in the lifestyle, in your mental, to have everything become congruent, so that you're not just pulled in all these directions and nothing responds, and that you become, with all of your free minds, your head, your heart, and your sex all aligned into your one direction, which is up.
Yeah, I mean, I can see how for guys that would just be the ultimate sort of emasculating experience, right? And to take that 360 view of it, as opposed to just like, let's make a chemical thing happen. Because I'm guessing there could be all sorts of things inside of that experience which they might have never fully connected with themselves or the things that are affecting them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, actually what we find is... Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say what we find is just that, yes, there are a certain amount of men who have a physical issue, but actually the larger percentage, it's more mental.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're trying to address the mental with a physical thing like a pill, it's not really going to work.
What do you feel is what do you experience as the specific mental block that men are having around that?
The specific block is what we call the anxiety will. So they had one negative experience, And since then, they have been playing this tape in their head about how they failed, they didn't deliver, they didn't stay hard, or they couldn't get hard. And then they start to build this anxiety every time they think about having sex. And that becomes where they stuck. So it becomes a like fulfilling prophecy in a sense. And that's one of the biggest thing is this inner dialogue.
Oh yeah, I can see how that could be completely, they struck out at their last at bat, and now they're just traumatized with that. Like, oh, I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. And so they become not good enough.
They tie so much of their self-worth as men into whether or not they can get an erection. I mean, what are the male genitals? It's like the ultimate symbol of being a man, right? And when it doesn't work, it just crushes the ego and the self-worth and the confidence. All of that stuff just goes down with it.
Yeah. Ah. Well, is there anything before we close our session? Is there anything else you'd like to share with our viewers or like offer?
Well, I would love to end on a positive note because that's what we always do. Because I know we went really deep here. Remember that sex is beautiful, healing, and that you just need to make it a part of your life. You brush your teeth 3 times a day or twice a day. You sleep every night. You manage to put that in your schedule. So make a choice today that you can change your life, your relationship by making love more often and better. And so make it this commitment for 2020. We're still at the beginning of the year. So make this your year for the most love and fulfillment you've ever had. Put it in your schedule and stick to it.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Amen to that. Amen to that. Thank you guys. Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Simon. Have a great day.